Aidan, it's been 15, almost 16 years that we've known each other, and who would have thought we'd end up here doing a podcast together? But also the conversation I guess we're going to have is so different to probably how we started out. I think each of us have had, in your own words, different eras we've gone through in our lives of interests, of identities. You know, when I first met you, you were like the athlete kid at school. You're doing your decathlons. Pole vaulting was what you were obsessed with. Yeah. Then you went into tricking and parkour. Yeah. Then we went through, I guess, uni life together and all of that. And now you've just hit 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, but not in any of the areas that you were initially interested in maybe 10 years ago. Yeah. But of all things, you've got into trading card games, Pokemon, creating all kinds of content. And I like it because I feel like in the last couple of years since you've got back into YouTube, that part of you that I thought almost died for a little bit when you just got into working life, that kind of creative, artistic drama Aidan has come out under your, I guess, what would you say, your pseudonym, Retro. And that was a crazy experience for me. It was a couple of months ago. We were at an expo in the city and you had like a bunch of, I guess, fans come up to you and refer to you as Retro. And I'd never heard of you. I've always just known you as Aidan, but I guess the majority of the world now knows you as Retro.
100% right. I think, you know, you can call them different eras in life and they might not seem related to one another. But I think the thing about being a creative is that one thing merges into the next. Like the tunnel vision I had with triathlons and cycling and running, that just converted into being able to then focus really heavily on content creation. I was making videos when I was 14 years old about opening pencil cases, little parody videos like that. And we're doing parkour, we're doing flips and all this other kinds of stuff. And really the skill we're building there wasn't parkour. It was learning how to share your passion with the world. And I think that common thread has followed through everything that I've been interested in throughout my life and has led to a point now where I feel like I've really got a groove. Things are starting to really take off and I'm feeling like this is where I can kind of take the rest of my life and really, really kind of thrive through it. So it's a fun life. I'll put it that way. It's often quite stressful and it can be deflating at times, but when you're at your highs, it's you never regret any part of it. So
yes, it's been an interesting trend that I've seen in you is over the last 10 years, you always look back, I guess we all do, with nostalgia and great joy, like looking at the stressful times, like when you pushed through an exam, you pulled an all-nighter, getting an assignment done, you just, you know, you almost got physically sick from like grinding so hard, but then the payoff at the end of it, and then you look back and you go, you look back at that time fondly.
The trick is to just never stop. Just keep pushing and you might be making the wrong decisions or you might be going down the wrong path every now and then, but eventually if you keep going and you keep adjusting, you'll get back on it. And you have all those skills that you built through going through that wrong path.
I guess you don't have the regret too because you actually gave yourself a chance. Going down the whole changing path and the wrong path, I mean, for both of us, reinventing ourselves constantly over the different years, whether it's to do with interests or identities. Like for a while there, you were a cyclist. Well and truly, I remember you competing on the Strava app, getting into like competing with the top people in Perth.
Well, isn't that funny? Because with our new trading card game GeoPals, we recently had a running competition on Strava, and the only reason I knew about Strava and how much fun it was is through cycling. So that's another example of the kind of passions merging together.
And it kind of compounds on itself, hey, because like you've picked up all these different skills over the years, and it's, as you said, Strava comes in. Even with YouTube, it started out making little funny tutorial videos. I remember watching that in chemistry in high school.
Case,
and then also with the parkour, like just that explaining, educating, being comfortable on camera. Because I think it's maybe very easy for people to look at you now. In a way, you've been a bit of an overnight success. You know, the last 12 months, it's definitely been like an exponential change.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, I've had YouTube since 2011. I think that's when I set up my first channel. And the parkour channel did okay. I think we got to 14,000 subscribers and I was feeling pretty good about that. But back then, YouTube was never seen as a potential career. The value of being a public figure or creating content wasn't really there. you're just making videos because you had fun doing it. And I didn't know why I did it. I was just kept making videos because I want people to see what I'm doing. But so I dropped off and I started focusing on uni and things like that, stopped making videos entirely. But now it's kind of like when COVID hit, I started getting into Pokemon again, and I kind of found the time to start making content again. And now it's just like a lifestyle. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. So how do you find as balancing all of that now? Because you're still working full time, and you're doing the whole content creator thing. Yeah. How do you manage that?
It's tough, right? You got to make sacrifices to find the time to be able to make these videos. So I think I spend about 4 hours per 30-second video that I make.
Wow.
There's a lot involved in the process, and we can go into that in more detail in a little bit. But essentially, every second that I would otherwise be spending watching TV or, hanging out with friends or doing stuff that I enjoy doing or doing things that I would do to relax, I've got to replace that with making content, creating new scripts, filming, etc. And sometimes when things are going really well and you're motivated on YouTube because your views are going up, your subscriber base is going up, you're getting lots of positive feedback for that effort, it's 100% what you want to be doing. You want to be making videos. You don't want to be spending time doing those other things. But when you're in a slump and maybe you're not going viral and you've made 10 videos and they've all performed fairly averagely, that's the hardest time to keep pushing through. And that I think is what is the difference between someone who ends up making it on YouTube or through these creative pursuits because they keep going, because they have the passion for it and they see the long-term vision, versus the people that just drop off because they feel like it's over just because they're having a slump.
How have you got through those slumps? Because I think if we go beyond even just content creators and just think about creatives in general, because I think whether it's, even if you like are learning music, for instance, for a long time, until you get to a certain level of ability, it's not even fun because you're not playing anything that sounds good. Yeah. Or doing your first performances. Sometimes you have to put in so much work before there's any kind of payoff in this thing that you're pursuing. So I guess even I get with YouTube, for instance, when you've gone through one of those slumps, how have you maintained being consistent and pushing through when you feel like there's not the payoff, where it's not really worth it?
It's a really good question. I think it comes down to your kind of life philosophy. And so for me, if I'm going to be fully authentic as a human and live a life that I'm not going to regret, I need to be a creative. I need to be putting out content that I feel needs to be shared with the world, because that's what drives me. That's what makes me happy. That's what is not a chore to me. It's something I need to do. And if I lived a life where I dropped all of that side of me and just did the corporate stuff, just did my 9-to-5 job and kind of lived in that box, I would live a very regretful life in the long term. So when I have these slumps and I'm at my lowest points, it's actually not a decision that needs to be made, because there is no option. I don't want to, it's either
I have to do this.
It's either like I lived a life without meaning and I have lots of regret because of that, or I just keep going. Which one do you choose? And if you frame the question like that, you'll always choose the decision to keep going, because
it's amazing. It's like building that life that you don't really want a holiday from, that you don't want to escape. Because I think sometimes people we really love the idea of a holiday.
Yeah.
And I know we're like this, we'll go on a trip together, but then within 3-4 days, you're kind of itching to get back to your regular life, to keep working on like those projects. So it's a delicate balance, hey, because you actually want to be busy. You want to be grinding at something that excites you, that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
What would you say to like people that haven't found that thing that's worth it? I mean, you're saying no regret, and I guess for you it's changed. Like you said, it's been different eras where you've had different interests, but in terms of identifying and finding those things where it's like, okay, I'm willing to lock in on this and keep going at it, even though I may not see the results. But you're saying you have like no choice but to do it, otherwise you're going to feel regret. How do you find that thing?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. I think it's the pursuit is not for everyone. Like, I'm almost jealous of the people that enjoy their 9-to-5 lives and they live a very balanced life. They have time with their friends. They do their day jobs, and they're happy. If you're happy, that's the goal. Like if you're happy, like 100%, you don't need to find that creative thing. It's if you're not happy and you know that there's more that you want, or there's something in you that you want to share with the rest of the world, and you're not being able to do that. That is the type of person that does need to go on this kind of.
It's like a burden that you got to release.
Yeah, and not everyone is kind of like that, right? But the advice I would give, and going back to your question, how do you actually find that? I think you start off with, well, what are you passionate about? And that's always a hard question, right? Because I remember when I was a kid getting asked that question, I would always frame it in like, what are you passionate about? That is a stereotypical job. It's like, what am I passionate about?
What are you passionate about that fits in this box?
This box. Is it energy? Is it medicine? Is it mining? Which one is it? What am I passionate about? But what I didn't think about back then when I was a kid is, I'm passionate about Pokemon. Like, I'm passionate about.
But you discounted that because you're like, well, that's not a thing.
That's not a thing.
Count.
Yeah, it doesn't count. But you can create commercial avenues out of anything. Literally anything. Yeah. And that's why Pokemon's a thing. That's why it's a multi-billion-dollar franchise. It's not an easy thing to build, obviously, but it's possible. And, YouTube is a thing. Social media is a thing. You can make money from making content about anything. And I bet you if you love it, there's millions of other people that do as well. And if you're good enough at being a creative on that topic and giving people the value that they want on that topic, they will watch you. And the advertisers will reward you for it. Yeah, it's funny, like just the world has changed so much now, like even from when we were at school. And it's also like when you're doing that vocational kind of, not training, but when you're sitting in towards the end of school and they go, well, what's your career going to be? Yeah.
And you're having to start to think along those lines in terms of whether you're going to study or work. There's careers and occupations and work or jobs that hadn't existed yet, entire industries. Like being a YouTuber wasn't a thing, AI wasn't a thing, or you just had never been exposed to it. Like you didn't know that you could turn a trading card game into a legitimate business.
Yeah, I know, until you do it.
Yeah. Or you meet people that have done it, something similar, and you're like, wow, I didn't even know that was a thing. And so it's so hard to make these decisions as a young person when you've never even been exposed to what's out there.
I think when we were growing up, that's definitely true. I think the new generation of today is learning that is an option very early on. But what I would say is for the people that were just passionate about it and didn't really do it for the money at all, back when YouTube was just starting up, they were just putting content up because, they wanted to make videos that people would see. Like that was just the reason they did it. It wasn't about money or anything like that. They got a huge competitive advantage because that was when, there was less competition and they built up audiences and then all of a sudden it did get commercialized and it's like, wow, now they're in the top of this mountain. The first ever kind of content creator, Smosh, I don't know if you remember them.
No.
Smosh, they made like little parody skits, quite often featured Pokemon, but featured all sorts of things. Yeah. And they got like millions of views. Ray William Johnson's another one.
I remember
millions of views.
Yep.
He had 12 million subscriber channel in the early days of YouTube. I think he's got like 16 million now. But he's just returned to YouTube after trying to make it in Hollywood. He sold his channel, bought it back.
Yeah.
And now he's at the top of this mountain again. He's getting crazy views because he's got like 15, 20 years of practice from when it didn't pay.
It is a skill set.
It is a skill set.
I wonder with, if you think about early YouTube versus now, and this is kind of thinking about, we have all these, even whether it's building a personal brand or being on camera, like thinking about authenticity or doing something for the love of it is sometimes a challenge. Because do you feel like back then, not every title was a clickbait title? People put a lot less thought into their thumbnails and that kind of thing. Do you find now you live in a tension between creating the content you want to make because you're passionate versus the content that works for the algorithm?
It's a good question, but I think the answer to that is no. And I think if it ever became yes, I would no longer be motivated to make videos. And I would rather just work a 9-to-5 job. If you're that enslaved by what the algorithm wants, or you can't figure out a way to make your passion fit with the algorithm, which I think is what you're aiming to do all the time.
Yeah, okay.
If you can't do that, it's no different to having a job. You're still just a, you know.
Are there things that you put in place to like protect yourself from that, from stopping this like channel you're creating becoming a thing you feel like enslaved to, or like that where you haven't got that freedom anymore?
Was the vision that you set up at the very start of the channel, right? So for me, it was like I just got so much entertainment out of nostalgia, right? In general, nostalgia is the theme, and you know, it started with Pokemon cards are nostalgic, cool, but then you broaden that. What else is nostalgic? The family banter you had with your dad and your mom and your friends as a kid. You know, the manipulative tactics you would use to convince your parents to have a sleepover. You know, your dad would be hiding the Game Boy everywhere, and it's like you look back at that and you're like, I can't believe that was actually a thing.
Yeah, it's so true that there's such a hook, and I think that kind of reaches across generations, because I was sitting with my parents over Christmas and we were watching a bunch of your shorts.
I found that really funny. Yeah,
and it's funny because as you're saying, like the dad character, the son, the older brother, like they totally were relating to that as well. I mean, Pokemon wasn't nostalgic for them, but they had kids that did all those dynamics you talked about, like play out. You know, they saw that and could relate to it.
And I think your point around what are the protective mechanisms, I think one of them is that I'm not tying my whole channel to Pokemon. Pokemon is an element of nostalgia for me and for obviously millions, if not billions of other kids and adults, of course, more adults because it's nostalgic for them.
Yeah.
But like, I think, what was I going to say? It's one of the protective mechanisms because I can deviate from Pokemon. I can go to any form of nostalgia and still have content that is true to why I started the channel. I could just keep moving it. And if I ever come up with a new idea or a new vision that I want to start making content around, maybe it's making videos around content creation itself. Maybe it's making videos around GeoPals, which is the new trading card game that we're making. We'd set up different channels for that just because you don't want to blur the lines of why you've set up a channel. So, I think nostalgia is the theme behind the channel, and we obviously do that in a skit format, but we can do that in any format. We can change that if I get bored of the skits. We can, you know, move the characters around.
So how did you did you stumble into skits? Because I think we've talked about this off camera a bunch of times, but you know, finding what works and gets it like that kind of intersection between the content you like creating and the content that's really resonating. How did you end up doing the format of skits and shorts that you do? Because it's you know, for anyone that's listening, if you were to go to Poker Retro's channel right now on YouTube and you watch shorts, there's hundreds of videos, but you could scroll through them and there's definitely a consistent way of doing it you've kind of landed on. How did that come about?
That's a really good question. I think it started with watching a whole bunch of other skit creators. So the Fairburn brothers, they were these Australian comedian content creators.
Yeah, okay.
And then I've forgotten this guy's name, but he was a guy that did that same format where he was all the characters. And I remember watching that and just being like, wow, like that is so engaging. That is so funny. Like just the concept of that same person being everyone. It's just like
and now you've got all the filters and everything.
Exactly. And I was just like, oh man, this is so good. And I feel like just talking to the camera doesn't really convey the kind of message that you want to give. Like I can't go to my audience and say, oh, picture this, you know, the dad is getting angry at the kid for playing Game Boy for too long. Like that's not going to work. The only way to convey that element of nostalgia is by acting it out. That's the only way you can do it. And so you can act it out in different ways. You know, you can do very professional short film style content. I don't think that hits the mark with the nostalgic angle very well because it's too serious.
It's not really coming from that emotional place, right?
It's too serious. So I was like, well, you know, I'm all the characters just like this other YouTuber was. I was like, that could work. Like that'd be pretty funny. Like pretending, you know, just the irony of me now being an adult, you know, pretending to be like younger again and also being the adult. Like it's kind of like they know that I understand all the angles when I'm acting it out. So
yeah, it's true. I mean, you're definitely the full spectrum because I remember when you first got into Pokemon, long before the YouTube channel became a big part of it, you were trading Pokemon cards because there was that boom. Back in 2014, you bought a Pokemon base set.
Yeah.
And this was while we were at uni.
Yeah.
And I think, how much did you spend on it initially?
It was like $400.
400 Australian?
That's 20 grand now.
$20,000 now. So
yeah.
it's been the Pokemon boom of COVID, basically.
Yeah.
And I remember you trading, like flipping Pokemon cards as a bit of a business.
Yeah. Yeah. In 2014.
And then you made videos about like the analytical side of like the market trends, economic analysis of Pokemon cards. So you've done this serious like talking head, analytical, logical kind of content. And then at some point there was this shift where you went more into the entertainment side of Pokemon, more down the nostalgia line. Mm-hmm. And then that's kind of what really led you to blow up.
It's a bit of shifting visions, I think. Like, you know, when you think about the boom of Pokemon, that's what I was interested in, analytics. I loved analytics. I loved like running numbers on things. Didn't even think about the entertainment side. It was just like, you know, it was this community of analysts, basically. But then I lost interest in that because, you know, money's not everything. And, you know, I've gone through lessons as I've grown older, and I've kind of learnt that, you know, I'm not really making much money from Pokemon by doing day trading. Yeah. You know, there was the big money gain from having it for 10, 15 years, you know, buying in 2014, selling in 2020. But if you're day trading, making sense, if not losing money, it kind of became this like, well, I'm not really that interested in analytics anymore, but I still like Pokemon. And then it was like, oh, why do I still like Pokemon if it's not just about money? And I'm like, well, because it's got all these nostalgic attachments. And then that then led to the next vision for the channel, which was make videos about that. Let's build a community, build an audience that's, you know, all there together to share that nostalgic feeling.
And then you've now created like a next generation version of that with your own trading card game, GeoPals.
Well, that was part of it. You know, Pokemon's becoming a multi-billion-dollar company, kind of to an extent loses its touch at that real like deep nostalgic level. And you know, they can't cater for every individual anymore. So what I thought was, you know, GeoPals can kind of try and do that. Obviously, we're going to completely change the concept. It's not about attacking and defending. It's not about catching them all. It's a whole new concept, which is about treasure hunting. So the characters have abilities that help them find treasure. You got to build your GeoPal team and race to get the treasure first. And then we're going to, you know, hide cards in real life. So people can literally go outside, get off their screens and try and find these things. And that can create nostalgia. You know, they're hanging out with their friends, they're hanging out with their parents. The parents are hanging out and getting like quality time with their kids. It's like a family friendly, nostalgic feeling.
It was very eye-opening for me when we were at that exhibition and there was that family that came up and I think the uncle and the son or something, they were down south 3 hours from Perth and they went and found a car that you hit on social media while you were down there and bumped into you. And I like how you've got this convergence of like the technology and the digital side. So you've got a Discord channel where you've got people chatting online and there's forums. At the same time, you're shipping cards all over the world. There's this global thing going on, but it's real and it's tangible. Yeah. Like you can go hang out and have real community, real places. Yeah. I'm excited to see what happens over the next 10 years with GeoPals. Because that's where it's going to really come to life. Because then you have like, I remember the early days of GeoPals when there was this and this.
Yeah, it's the nostalgia angle to it all, 100%. And I think these days, if you don't have a pretty solid social media presence or personal brand, I would almost say, it's very hard to kickstart any sort of business. You can have the best card game in the world, but if you don't have the audience or you haven't built a platform to be able to share your creation, it probably won't go very far. And that's especially true for a trading card game, because when you're starting, the costs of manufacturing are quite high, and you're probably not going to be making money. You're actually going to be losing money for the first kind of 5 years. So you need to have like the money coming through from the ads and stuff from social media to help fund the project. But B, if you don't at least have a couple of people that are following it and helping to fund it, then you're going to be pretty deep in the negative fairly quickly with no hopes of it ever taking off because you don't have the platform to make that happen when it is ready. So
would you say it's important to build the platform first then?
Yep. Yeah, I think part of it is you've got to build the platform and take people on the journey through the platform. You got to don't just build your new product or whatever you're doing in the shadows for 5 years and then come out with it. Be like, expect everyone to want it. You got to show everyone the trials and tribulations you've had to go through, all the struggles you've had to go through to build this
thing.
Then people really understand the fundamentals of your brand.
I'm personally challenged by this. Yeah, just to shed more light behind the scenes and share the journey.
Yeah, because
that's definitely the path you've taken.
Yeah, because then they learn and they have input into what works and what doesn't, and you're getting constant feedback, and the community is growing and growing and growing, and you're seeing what's working and what's not working as the community shape shifts over time. And so it's like a constant feedback loop that results in a product that's probably 1 million times better, honestly, probably 10 times better than what you would have created if you hadn't got that feedback throughout the development of it. And not only do you end up with a product that's better aligned with the community that you've developed, but you also then have an audience for your product once it's done.
So you can actually market it.
Yeah. And it's like, I think, having the big YouTube channel that's built around nostalgia, creating a product that is built around nostalgia is the best way to go about, making this a full-time career. It's like,
I really like too the healthy vision and mentality you've built behind GeoPals and the YouTube channel because, as I've seen, we've talked about, there are those slumps where you're not getting the reach on your videos anymore because the algorithm changed, or just personally you're busy with life, like you're overwhelmed at work, you have personal stuff going on,
it happens.
and so it gets really hard. And if it's just about the product, or it's just about because there might be some delays on the artwork for the cards, or there might be just things that are going wrong that are causing stress and tension. And if you're just obsessed with the product or the money or the reach or the views, you give up or you'll lose touch. Whereas I feel like you've come to a really healthy place where you are taking a really long-term view. And maybe talk a little bit about that, how you're now framing YouTube and GeoPals to be this sustainable long-term thing. Because I remember we went for a walk through Kings Park the other day and we were chatting about GeoPals, and you were talking about, in years' time, how you could see being part of like school curriculums.
Yeah.
And like, we're already kind of, even with the running, with the Strava thing now it's like, you've got people that are going out there and like trying to do this running challenge so they could win a certain card or unlock it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like talk about that a little bit, like how you've kind of taken that on that bigger vision and how that's helped you.
Yeah. I think it's interesting how the path has just become clearer and clearer and clearer as time goes on. So it started off, if we go all the way back to year 9, when I was like 14 or something.
Yeah.
I was just making videos because it was fun. And that was the first flag that said, hey, Aidan, you're probably a creative person. You're probably going to need to do this, or you're going to have a miserable kind of life because it's just who you are. Like, you have to be like this. And I didn't make anything of it. I was just like, I'm just going to make videos. I'm just going to do it just because it's like, feels right. And I enjoyed it. And it wasn't about money. It wasn't about a future vision or anything like that. Until it got to the point where I stopped making videos for a little while, started focusing on uni and stuff and my job and all that kind of stuff. I was like, YouTube's not going to be a thing.
Yeah.
Then I had this realization in, COVID times, 2020, when I was like, actually, it needs to be a thing, because if it's not, then I'm not going to live the life that I want to be living. And so that is when the long-term vision started shaping up, and it was like, okay, so what can I practically do to make this a sustainable career or a sustainable long-term venture? And, the first step in that is, okay, well, I need to have a vision. I need to have a strategy for all of this. And first of all, it was, a lot of trial and error, trying to figure out what content I actually enjoy making, getting to that point around, well, I want to make content about nostalgia because that is what I enjoy making content about. Is
this when you like you've said that's like the core theme, and you've got almost like this one word like nostalgia, and this means something, and that's like your anchor point.
Yep.
You come back to in terms of shaping the content. Is that something that did you ever sit down with a piece of paper and like ever try to write this stuff out? Like what did that actually look like?
All the time. Yeah. No, always trying to pull out like a PowerPoint document and summarize what the strategy is. And it's nostalgia at the top and it branches. There's like a tree diagram that sits under it.
Okay.
But it always changes, and it's always shifting. But the thing that stays common is that nostalgia.
I find that really, because we've never talked about that before. But I'm big on. I have all these notebooks and stuff, and I will constantly be drawing diagrams because you have all these like ideas of what you want to do, what could be some of the themes, and you're trying to find that.
Yeah, 100%. But anyway, we figured that out. So that was the first point where we got a starting point for this strategy, and then it was like but without a big audience, we're never going to have, the chance of this succeeding as a long-term venture. So it was like, well, how do you get a big audience through nostalgia? And that's where the skits came in. That's where, there was so much trial and error with figuring out what kind of content that aligns with my vision would suit the algorithm. And Mr. Beast always says the other word for the algorithm is, you can just replace algorithm with like the audience. So what would suit the audience? It's the same thing. The algorithm suits what the audience wants. The only difference is that the algorithm kind of relies and it doesn't always give you a chance. So you need to really push it until it does. But I think once you've got a bit of a base and you've got a couple of thousand people watching you, it does give you a chance. And then it's just about what kind of content does that audience relate to?
So what was the early stages? Because you're saying you build that base audience and then you got to find that rhythm with the algorithm or the audience to grow it. So because you didn't start on YouTube, did you? Or when you started on
Instagram,
YouTube, how many followers did you have when you first went onto YouTube?
Had about when I first went onto YouTube, I had 0.
Yeah. But I guess it was particularly with the Poker Retro channel.
Yeah, we had like I think like 14,000 followers on Instagram that we built through just showing off cards. So that was kind of the base. That's how we sent people over to YouTube. But back to this kind of long-term vision thing. So we figured out the content that works. And then I think, we had a YouTube channel for 14 years, but we only had 1,000 subscribers over the first 13 years. And then
December 2022.
And then short form videos became a thing. I think that really was the thing that made this content style possible. We're already blowing up on TikTok. So I think people were already familiar with my content, people that kind of migrate between the two platforms. And it was around Christmas 2022. We got like 100 million views in 1 month. And it was just like one video went viral.
Wow.
All of the others just went with it. It was just like, oh, wow, this is crazy. This does resonate with people. This nostalgia thing does resonate with people. It's not just TikTok, that blew up throughout 2022. It's not just because TikTok, I just got lucky. It's like, no, that I replicated that same content on YouTube and it also did well. So it's like, okay, now we got two platforms. There's something to it. There's something to the content that's working. And so
because you're actually connecting with people, it's the connection that was the thing that unlocked. It wasn't some algorithm thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think Mr. Beast always says, always replace the word algorithm with your audience, because it's like, what does the audience want? What's the audience going to favor? What's the audience going to pump? They've got to like the content.
Do you think that some creatives struggle with a bit of ego with that? In creating content they want to make versus, people should like this. It's like the musician who writes a song that they think is amazing, but
well, you got to look at the stats. It's like the number one metric that I think all platforms use is your watch through percentage. So how many people watch the full video and how many people swipe away. So like your swipe through rate. So in the first 5 seconds, how many people choose to watch or go to the next video.
So how do you optimize those two things? So we have watch through percentage and then how quick people swipe away. So obviously a big part of the swipe away is the hook.
Yeah, it's
the first.
Yep.
What would you say the hook is? Is it the first 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds?
Yeah, it's the first kind of 3-4 seconds.
You've
got to create unanswered questions. You've got to create unanswered questions and you've got to tap into the thing that people are passionate about. If I'm doing nostalgia, the first 3 seconds has to show a nostalgic situation that people can relate to and also pose a question that doesn't get answered till later in the video. So it's like, hey, I'm so bored swiping through his phone. You know, that could be a hook. And then people are like, oh, you know, I swipe through my phone and I'm often bored. Like, where's this going? How's he going to solve that problem?
How's this going to play out?
And then Jacob comes in, you know, the younger character, and he's like, you know, he poses a question to the brother. It's like, hey, do you want to do this? And then, but doesn't give what the thing is that they're going to do. And so then it builds, and the suspense builds. Add some humor into it. Add some ingredients into the the skit, to the point where everyone's like, what is the thing? At the end, they've got some laughs, they've got some emotion along the way, but what is the thing? And then there's the punchline that happens in the last kind of 5 seconds that says, this is the thing. and then if that meets expectations and people enjoy what that thing is, and it hits the mark with the vision of the channel, which is nostalgia, it fully aligns with the content that you're trying to make, and what your audience are there for, then they might subscribe, they might comment, they might share. All of those things also help get your stats up in the algorithm.
I've heard with subscribers, someone said it the other day, that people subscribe or follow you on social media or YouTube, not because of the content you've put out previously, but because of the content they expect to get from you going forward.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah,
100%. And I think kind of staying on that thread of long-term vision, because that's kind of where all this is sort of building up to.
Yeah.
So we got to the point where we figured out the algorithm a little bit. I still got a long way to go with that.
But you're building an audience, which I think a lot of people want to skip the build the audience part and go straight to, well, even like me, I want to do podcasts, I want to do long form conversations, but you do need to get that following, which you're going to get through.
You need it.
Short form.
It's not a negotiable.
Yeah.
People want to outsource it. That doesn't work either, because if you're making a product.
Well, that's a big thing just in the world right now. Like personal brands are blowing up. If you look at every company that's doing really well, it's like even Tesla is built on Elon Musk, or whether it's Mr. Beast or Kylie Jenner, it's like whatever they touch turns to gold. Or even these other brands. Who's that actor?
Logan Paul.
Yeah, Logan Paul. Ryan Reynolds. Yeah. Ryan Reynolds has made millions and millions of dollars, not as an actor, but in business.
I know.
Because he's...
I think billions almost.
Crazy money.
Almost billions, yeah.
Because he's the personal brand, and it's... in the meantime, you've got all the small business owners and entrepreneurs and aspiring creatives who think who they want to be a faceless brand.
Yeah,
they want to have a business brand, not a personal brand. And they're like, oh, I'll get a marketing person to be the face of my company. It's like you've got to be the person.
That doesn't work for emotional businesses. That only will work for like your industrial kind of businesses.
But aren't almost all businesses now are emotion? Anything that actually sells to a consumer directly.
Yeah. I'd say like utilities is not as much of an emotional business, but like products, anything that requires the person to feel something towards that item and prefer it over the exact same item provided by someone else. Those, like, you can, but you also kind of can't have a faceless brand for it.
But it's maybe, unless you have like a distinct, you're way cheaper or whatever, it's probably the only real way to get cut through in an industry as well. Like, even if you have the, best quality, lowest price steel barbarian that gets used in like some mining operation, your product won't even get discovered unless there's some sort of like notable person who
100%
brings it on the scene. Like, you need that person of influence.
You do need it. And you see a lot of people trying to outsource that influence. That doesn't work very well usually unless that person is fully dedicated to that brand and completely changes their content to be about that brand. Because if I am making a channel built around nostalgia, and someone comes and says, hey, Aidan, I want you to start promoting a product that has nothing to do with nostalgia, all me promoting that product is going to do is destroy my channel. That's all it will do. And it won't help them because my audience is just going to be like, go away, you're a sellout. So that's why I think it works best if you build the audience first, define the vision, build the audience around the vision, then build the product around how the audience is shaping. It's like
that's very practical.
The topic of the product, like you can say trading cards, right? I can say, I'm going to make a trading card game. Cool. But I might not want to fill out the blanks of that trading card game until I understand the audience that we built through the content that is on theme with something, So it's like I think people get the order wrong or they think that they don't have to do one and they can just outsource it without understanding like that they probably can't unless they're some $1 billion company that can buy an influencer, forever. It's just, people undervalue content creation. I had a lot of people be like, hey, Aidan, can you make some content for my product? Just permanently, just I'll give you some free stuff. I won't charge you for it. I might. Do you realize how much these videos are actually worth? Like if you actually it's
as you said, 4 hours of your time.
Well, it's not about that
as well.
It's actually more about, the years that have been spent building that platform. And they treat it as like this, like, oh yeah, just do this. It's not a big deal. And I'm like, yeah, no. Respectfully, like, I understand why they don't get it because it's like a weird like niche that you only get once you're understanding like and fully immersed in it. But what they don't realize is it's the pass or fail factor. Like if you don't have that, you're probably not gonna get the audience that you need to your product.
Do you find what you do very lonely? Because I've found that going into, this is my first year going, leaving my job and going full time as an entrepreneur. And I found it really, really lonely. In fact, the more I've gone out this year, I find myself unable to relate to people who don't live a life similar to me as much. Like I understand because I've also lived that life, but just in terms of, I can understand them, but they can't understand me. So people can't understand what it means to be a content creator. They have no point of reference for building a brand, protecting that brand. Like, is there a level of loneliness you experience in what you're doing? Like you can't, like no one understands?
I think I've got, I filter a lot of things when I'm being, hanging out with my everyday friends. I definitely filter a lot of things, but I have enough in common with them still through surfing and other sorts of sports, for example, that make that filtering not really a problem. It's just like, I just don't talk about these things, but I still engage in conversations and I still don't think entrepreneurially about surfing. I just surf.
Yeah.
But, when I want to be creative and I want to talk to people, I've got people like you that I really enjoy talking to. I've got maybe 3 or 4 others that I can kind of have these pretty sophisticated conversations with and they'll get it. So that kind of helps with that outlet. I think my girlfriend Emily can talk about this stuff really well and understands it, which is like, she's always around me. So that makes that really easily.
That's good. I think you need that.
But then people that share the passion in specifically what I'm creating is the community. So it's like I've got
actually the audience. Yeah, the audience, which is the other reason why you need the audience.
Well, and actually I don't see everyone in my audience as strictly an audience. I see some people in the audience or in the community as like friends. And like there's probably 20 to 30 people on my Discord right now who like I would lose money to make sure that I keep them as friends. Like I will never treat them as customers. They will always be like the 30 people that I just have loads of fun talking to about the things that we're creating. And they're part of the creation process. They're like fully part of it. They're like running parts of the geocaching series. They're like running parts of the community. They're like running all these sorts of things. And I have like genuinely fun conversations with them. You would have seen a lot of the people that rocked up at the Pixel Expo that we went to. They were all part of that like core community who it's not about money when it comes to those people. It's purely about the passion behind all this. And, keeping my corporate job and keeping all that kind of stuff makes me not have to worry about the money. So that
has been a beautiful side of it. Yeah.
And it is a competitive advantage while it is stressful and it's a lot of work trying to juggle the two. It is the beautiful part about it because I don't have to worry about every transaction. I can just say, I'm going to lose 10 grand this year. And I'll cover that through the money that I'm making in my corporate job. And in doing that, I'm going to maintain these friendships that are essentially in the long term going to be the thing that sustains the company to where it needs to get to. It's like a lot of people would just be focused on the transactions in that 1 year and they'll lose their whole audience and they'll fall off. So it's like, build your audience, look after them. Don't worry about profits in the short term. Just focus on building the audience and then building depth within that audience within a smaller group and treat them as friends and as humans and not as customers. And I think that is I could be wrong, I'm not a success story yet, right? So I'm just on this path, but I'm confident that is what is going to make this
you've
work.
done one very key part of the equation. You've definitely built an audience.
Yeah.
For sure. I find it a hard number, like 500,000 subscribers. I mean, not only the time period in which you've done it, but that's crazy. Some YouTubers I follow that I kind of put on a bit of a pedestal whether it's in a photography niche, have like 150,000 subscribers.
You got to caveat that a little bit with the fact that I'm a shorts content creator and I haven't fully broken into the long form side of things yet. And so while I built a community through the help of Discord and through the help of short form content, it's not as deep as someone who is consistently relating to their audience through long form content. So while I think you shouldn't discredit short form creators, there's an art to it, and it's definitely an avenue to building that longer form audience eventually. It's one of the only ways to do it these days because the video market's so saturated. How do you build a brand in a saturated market? Very hard.
You need the short form
to cut through. You kind of need it. Yeah. A lot of the big long form creators were big 10 years ago when YouTube was still kind of, in its infancy. So I think you need it, and it's how you can build that depth of audience. But you talk about your friends, the people you watch with 150,000 subs, they've earned it more than I have, I would say. I mean, I've done the smarter not harder route, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting take, and I think not that you can comment on it massively now, but once you have a bit more time and you do start creating more long form content, to see how well that transition happens in terms of bringing the audience over.
And I think that's something else worth talking about is if you are working a full-time job on the side of your content creation journey, you can't just be a long form creator because it would take so much time for such little reward that you'd just end up, even if you did make a video a day, you'd probably never get there because, the algorithm just wouldn't support those long form style videos unless you really tapped into a niche and it just, and you had the right networks to help share it around and build. Some people can still do it, but it's hard, especially with like Pokemon content. Everyone's making Pokemon content.
And when you say you spend 4 hours on a 30 to 60 second short form video, you think about how much time would go into a similar quality long form 12-minute, even a 60-minute, 12-minute video would be crazy.
Days. Yeah. Well, probably like 10, 15 hours. And the 4 hours I spend on a short form content, very efficient hours.
Well, you were super dialed in now.
Yeah, they're not like if I was just starting out, like those 4 hours would probably be like 8. Like it would be a lot longer. Because
just on the topic of short form creation and your process, when we talk about that a little bit, what would you say is some of the prerequisite skills and maybe tips and tricks you would say in becoming an effective short form creator? Like, so for instance, I've got a friend who's just started wanting to create content.
Yeah.
And she's jumping on camera. We went to film some stuff the other day. I was helping her set up all the lighting and everything. I'm like, okay, go, we're on the camera now. We're going to talk about this topic. And when she was on camera, her tonality was completely different to how she talk in person.
Yeah.
So obviously speaking to camera is one key skill, but what would you identify as some of those core skills you want to build?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think I'm fairly conservative with my approach, which probably makes it take a lot longer than it should.
Okay.
And the approach that I take kind of takes out all the risk of, or it takes away the need to be particularly competent in these sorts of, skills that you're talking about there, being authentic, etc. And I'll kind of walk through that. So I keep it basic. So obviously we've got an incredible setup in this podcast room right now, but I've just got 2 Elgato key lights that I can just move around and I don't worry too much about the lighting. That's not what people are watching the short form, or at least my videos for. As long as the lighting's just pretty good, it's fine.
Not a distraction.
Just basic. Yeah. Then I bought a good camera. So that's all I've got. I've got a A6 400. That was the YouTuber's choice camera when I Googled it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've got that, a tripod, 2 lights. That's the whole setup. Then the next thing is probably the most important thing is your script. So I'd say we talked about it a little bit before about the hook, then creating unanswered questions relating to the topic or the values that the audience is having, making sure when you use your hashtags, you're targeting those people and not.
Do you think hashtags make a difference?
100%. Okay. Just because if you
on all platforms or just YouTube?
All platforms.
Okay.
So because they impact the watch through percentage. Because if I hashtagged cooking or I hashtagged nothing on my short form videos, they would go to people who are not interested in nostalgia. And if they're not interested in nostalgia, they're going to swipe away, or they're not going to watch the whole video. And then that video is going to fall off in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So you have to target it. So they're not important in the sense of maximizing your reach. They're important to make sure your video gets sent to the right people in the first 20 minutes.
To quality control.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then YouTube's like, okay, it's good quality for these people. I'm going to broaden that a little bit. I'm going to broaden that a little bit until it goes viral.
Okay, let's dial back in on the process. So you're saying you overcome the need to be excellent on camera because of your process. We'll get to that. So a key part is doing the script.
The script. Yeah.
How long would you spend, obviously you have a bit of a template, how long would you spend in that, say 4 hours to make a video on the script itself?
I'll spend probably 2 hours making about 3-4 scripts for the week.
Okay.
Yeah. And I find if you're making videos every day, it's easier to come up with new ideas because you're in that creative flow. If you leave it so you're doing like one video a week, it's harder because you just mind goes somewhere else, and then you got to come back to it, and you're like, I don't know where to start with this. So, but yeah, the script. So it's that stuff we're talking about before: the hook, unanswered questions, create emotion, create character, make the characters relatable, and at the end have a punchline that creates an emotion for people. So it's like, that was funny, or that was shocking.
Dopamine reward.
There's an injustice here. I want revenge, you know? There needs to be something like that comes from the end of it. So get the script right. You're 70% of the way there. The next thing is, the filming itself. So your angles are pretty important. So your angles and your lighting. So I basic lighting, but I still use it to the best of its ability. You need lighting of some kind. Like, you don't want to just use a dim lit room to film.
Yeah, some overhead light. Yeah.
Natural light can be pretty good. I like to have the artificial kind of light because it really emphasizes.
But also sometimes I actually think even though it's not always the look you're going for, you get the little ring light, or even now you get the little glow. I've probably just pointed out to anyone who's actually watching this. Yeah. You get the little glow in your eye.
Yeah.
But it gives you a twinkle in your eye.
Yeah.
It makes you more captivating to look at.
Yeah. It's like a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the angle. So if you're acting a dad, you want to be looking up at the dad.
Yeah.
If you're acting the kid, you want to be looking down at the kid. Yeah. And it's not a matter of just switching the camera around so it's, facing one way, facing the other way. You got to think about I don't know the science behind this or the actual, I don't know what the word is for it, but
the lingo or the language.
Yeah, I don't know what the language is, but it's like if I'm facing to the right and I'm talking, I'm the older brother and I'm talking to the right here. You don't want the little kid then turning to the left, if that makes sense, because it's going to look like because even though they're not in the same shot together, people just recognize because they're turning different ways that naturally they're not going to be facing each other, so it doesn't make sense. So you've got to actually move the camera to where the person actually would be standing for it to work.
Right.
So and it's even.
So you can't just do the one shot with different faces.
Yeah, you can't.
You need to change the framing.
And that's even if you have a green screen. Even if you have a green screen behind you, you need to tilt your head in the way that it's meant to be tilted, so that it looks like the person's actually talking to the other person. So you got to think about the angles. It's a bit interesting there. So I don't know the science. Some people do. I don't think about it. I just try and like do it as though I'm just standing in all the places they normally would be standing, and then I don't have to worry about it. Yeah. But it makes it fiddly moving the camera around and doing all that sort of stuff. So
So how long does the filming take to get your 60-second ish video?
30 minutes, 35 minutes. I'll say, okay, this is where I get into the techniques of things. So I will say each line probably, and mind you, I'm not worried about what I sound like in the filming. I'm worried about what my facial expressions are doing and what I'm what I'm looking like. That's what's important.
So for anyone that wants to reference what he's talking about, go watch a bunch of his videos and pay attention to what he does with his face.
So it's 100% focused on that.
Yeah.
It's just your facial expressions. And for each line.
It is, and that's where the drama comes. I mean, it is a skit, but I would actually just say it's true of any good communicator.
Yeah.
If you were to watch a public speaker, people that gesticulate, use their hands well, or are very expressive with their face, it's like Mr. Bean.
Yeah.
You know, you watch him acting and he does a skit and he'll just do like the one eyebrow raise, or he'll just do these subtle things with his face, and it just does so much to the performance.
Oh yeah.
And I actually think if you could be that dramatic, you'd be a better communicator in general. But you actually were just super intentional about it. You
have to be.
You film for the purpose of getting the expressions.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the filming is all about the facial expressions, and I will say every line in that video. Sometimes I'll get it on the first shot, usually not. A lot of creators will get it on the first shot, and I know that they do, and I'm just like so jealous that they're that kind of consistent. I'm not, or I'm.
So will you film it a bunch of times, or are you watching? Like, are you playing it back after each take?
I click record. I'll say the same thing 5 times.
Okay.
Different facial expressions each time.
Is it usually the last one you go with?
It's I'll make a sound if I'm not happy with it afterwards. I'll be like at the end, just so I know that's not one that I want to use.
Okay.
And then I'll not make the sound for the ones that I think are okay. And then anyway, we'll get to the editing afterwards. But I'll do that like 5 times for every video, and I'll click unrecord, and then I'll go to the next angle or the next thing that I need to do. And if I make it in batches, it's a lot more efficient, because then I can be the same character and do like 4 skits at one time while I'm dressed as that character with that camera angle, etc.
So because I know you, at one stage when we were chatting, you would only do like a video a day.
Yeah.
Because you found it was too hard to, but now you can kind of do a couple of like you might do 4 videos, but each is the role of the dad.
Yep.
And you'll film. Okay.
Yeah. I think having a day of content creation is far more efficient, but also mentally exhausting. So staying fit and healthy is key to make sure you don't.
How do you find,
don't burn
it's
out.
a bit of a side tangent, we'll go back to your process. How do you find getting into the mental state of being on camera, making a video? Because I can understand scripting, you don't have to be as emotionally on point. You just have to sit down and wait till it comes. But when pressing record, being expressive with your face, like even as we're sitting down to chat, you know, it's pretty early in the morning. We're both feeling a little bit stifled. We've only just had a coffee. It takes a while to actually kind of get relaxed and in the zone.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's like, it feels like 3 times the amount of effort. Like 3 hours is like 9 hours if you're filming. So sorry, it is exhausting. And like also the anxiousness of it all and not knowing how it's going to turn out is another big part of it. It's like leading up to that filming session, I'll be kind of, you know, thinking about it, like how am I going to do it? Like what are the little things I need to get right to make sure that this video does well? It's very in depth, and it's funny because you see the final product and you're like, this is just does not feel like it's that much of a process, but it is.
Oh, because it's 60 seconds, right? And it seems relatively simple. Yeah. Because it's crazy because it's almost like you're the guy next door who's making a skit video.
Yeah.
That's kind of the energy and the vibe you're giving off. But yet there's so much production that goes behind it.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. And then after that, you finish all your characters, you do all your things. Sometimes I'll use a green screen. That complicates things further because then you've got more editing to do and you've got more thinking about angles and how they kind of fit together. Yeah. Without knowing where people naturally would stand, you got to think about the angles of their faces and all that type of thing. So that gets complex. Then I take it to the computer and upload all the files.
So you mentioned it earlier, but I'll touch on it again. When you do a take, so you're saying a line, you'll press record, you'll maybe do it 4 or 5 times, and then you'll press unrecord for that line. Yep. So each file you're getting is for per line, chronologically, or however you've done it.
Yeah, it makes the editing easier that way.
Okay.
It's just you kind of just go to the last one, crop it out.
Because as someone in media, just for anyone listening or watching, learning how to minimize post-production time is such a game changer.
Yeah.
It's like if you can just get things right before editing, Like it's very frustrating as a photographer when people just like, oh, fix it in post. I'm like, it's not that simple, or it's easier just to get it right here and now.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. But yeah, I was still say it like 5 times. Press for every line, have separate files.
Yeah.
Download it all. Use Final Cut Pro. So that's it's probably not the most complicated. Like if I really want to up my game, I'll probably have to switch programs, move to something a little bit more sophisticated. So especially if I wanted to get into like special effects and those types of things.
Yeah.
But it's really user friendly. So if you're doing, stuff like I'm doing, it's the most efficient to use, I would say. Then I drop all the files into Final Cut Pro. I have a sense for like what ones I do and don't need. In terms of like, I'll look at the sound bar at the bottom and it shows where all the speaking happens. And I'll kind of know which ones where the last part of the speaking is the one I want to use. I'll just.
Well, because you'll see that like you're saying when you didn't like a take, you have that. Because I found when I was editing 12 months ago when I was doing a bit more live streaming, which I might get back to, I would edit the videos after every day, and I would say, every time I say when you say the word there's a break in the sound file, then a big spike, and then another break, so you can very clearly see where your filler words are. Yeah. But I imagine
100%
reading sound files is
sound files are key. You learn a lot from like, you don't try to actively learn about it, but you kind of just get the hang of it's just so helpful seeing the sound file. Then I'll crop everything out. Spend like 5 minutes, I reckon. And I'm pretty quick with it now. Like I'm using keyboard shortcuts and stuff. Like the whole thing doesn't involve any clicks. It's just like zooming around and 5 minutes, got all the files I need. Then I'll order them in the way that they need to be ordered based on the script. Then I will do the ADR. So that's the voiceover. So I'll manually voice over every single line that I do, and that feels highly inefficient. But it's that point that I made at the start about I don't need to be talented at content creation. Well, I don't need to be talented at acting.
So to be clear, you just do the videos to get the expression of your face saying the line, and then the actual voiceover is a separate.
To get the voice right.
Yeah.
Right? And so then I might do, sometimes I'll get the voiceover, and each individual clip will have its own separate voice recording. And sometimes I'll get it right on the first try. Other times it'll take 3 or 4 tries to get the right voice. So it's a long process.
I know this has been an evolution, but I can just imagine that first shorts video taking like 10 hours.
Oh yeah.
Trying to do it this way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And then like once I've got all the voices good, then you start thinking about the psychology of a video, right? So you got it all lined up. It's all kind of...
and now does it flow?
And now does it flow, exactly. And you're going to get rid of every bit of blank space on that sound file to make sure that there's always some form of talking going on, right? And sometimes you take out too much of the blank sound, and it'll jump to the next person too quickly, or there isn't enough suspense being built because of the lack of pause, so you have to add the pause back in. And then you do it, you watch it at the end, you keep iterating until you watch it at the end and you're like, yes, that all felt, it's like a feeling you get. It's like that felt super smooth, It's like there was nothing in there where it felt like the pause was too long. There's nothing in there where... Do
you feel like you can judge that now? Where you know which videos are going to do well based on just a feel?
Yeah. Genuinely. Yeah. I know when watch time is going to be low because of this certain partner. And if I'm rushing the editing and I forget to really do that quality check at the end, quite often it won't work out. Like the whole effort is not worth it because I haven't done that last little quality review. And it gets like that, you're like all these 1%ers at the end, you feel like, oh, I've already put in all the effort. Like, do I really have to do all these other things? Can I just upload it? But it's kind of like if you don't do it properly and you don't get rid of that one little part that is going to get people to click off, you don't get rid of that, or you don't adjust it or have something else creative to fill the blank, you've just wasted that whole day of making a video.
It's so brutal. But that's life though, right?
Yeah.
It's actually, there's just key moments. It's like for me, it's like doing a wedding, rocking up, doing all the prep work, performing, and then never sending the invoice.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta do everything.
You've got to do it, man. And so you do all those quality checks. Then you've got a video that is likely going to do pretty well. Especially if the punchline's good, especially if your hook's pretty good and you build the suspense nicely and you've got your characters good. I said they're the key parts. Your character development, your script, and that kind of fine tuning at the end with the getting the transitions between each clip really smooth. Those are the three key things, and then your lighting and your voiceover quality, your facial expressions. They're all extra nice things to have that are still important enough to put,
but they're not the foundational
pieces. I don't
pieces.
think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I think the foundational pieces is your script and you can do I reckon I could do a pretty low quality production with a top quality script and that video would still do pretty good. So, yeah, I think that's what it comes down to for my style of content. For this type of thing, you need it. You need the production.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, this is not scripted. This is just free flowing. So, yeah. I mean, I guess it's hard for you to comment on maybe advice you'd give for people in other niches or
this is short form advice.
Content, yeah,
this is short form advice. Yeah.
And even to me, listening to that, I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way. Like that sounds like a lot of work, and it is a lot of work. But that's also the reason why you probably attribute that to being one of the large reasons why you've been able to grow so rapidly as well.
Yeah.
Because you have done those 1%ers that have led to you getting unusual results.
Yes, exactly. And what I would say is it does seem like a lot of effort. Some people have a formula that doesn't require that effort, right? So this is what I have done to achieve what I've achieved, There are people and I've seen Luke Davidson, he's a 20-year-old skit creator, based in Canada, I think.
Okay.
And kind of look up to him, even though he's like younger than me. It's really weird. And he showed the behind the scenes of him making a video. And he just has a phone that he puts on a timer. And he's like, clicks it, 3, 2, 1, does the voice. Next one, 3, 2, 1, does the voice, puts a wig on, clicks it again, 3, 2, 1, does the voice. Felt like, I don't know if this is just for the short or if this is actually his reality.
Yeah.
He would finish all of it in like 5 minutes. And he does put a bit of effort into editing.
Yeah.
Don't know how much, but it feels like his process probably like 40 minutes. And he's getting like some of his videos have like 200 million views. So I personally don't want to try to do that just because I think he's probably just a very good actor and his scripts are incredible. His scripts are like top notch, for this type of content. I think that's where he can get away with the quicker production because his scripts are so good. And because he's now a household name, he's got 12 million subscribers. He's huge.
Well, as you've said too, I don't know if we've talked about it in this conversation, but YouTube's success or content creation success is very much a momentum game.
It is.
Like once you hit 1 million views on one video, it kind of transfers over to your other videos.
And I'd say that if I uploaded his videos on my channel, they wouldn't do anywhere near as well, just because of the momentum he's built on his channel, right? So back to the question about this feels like a lot of effort, X, Y, Z. I'm like, I built what I've done with that effort. I don't want to change the formula. It's like if I built the 500K with 40-minute editing, editing processes, that's fine. But because I've built an expectation that the video is going to look like this, they're going to feel like this, they're going to, the audience expects that, so I can't change. And I feel like when I do change, and I have tried a couple of times, people notice.
To deviate from the method. Yeah.
Okay. So it's they'll be like, are you sick? Jacob doesn't sound like Jacob. Yeah. It's a weird thing. So,
oh no, you've trapped yourself.
I may never have got there if I didn't do it. So it's I'm just going to keep doing it.
It's part of the game.
But yeah, like I said, it compensates for me having to be a good actor or for me having to be a good actor in general, so facial expressions and voiceovers.
It's interesting going like full circle to some of the things we talked about just with building brand and stuff. You can't outsource some of this stuff.
You literally can't, because the creation
it's
is in the
exhausting,
editing.
and you're like, oh, how could I streamline this, blah, blah, blah. But the moment you change, the winning formula involves you doing the grindy stuff.
Yeah. And a lot of the, like, I talked about the flow and making sure it's a smooth flow. The only way you can get that smooth flow is from within you, and your vision, your audience, and what that flow needs to be, right? Like, someone else isn't going to get it. They're going to try and do it too professionally if they're an expert, and they'll kill it by doing things too over the top. The other thing is zooming in and out. Like, it's part of the flow. It's a visual flow. It's like there's a verbal flow and there's a visual flow. So if the dad character is speaking for, I don't know, 5 seconds, for example, he's got multiple lines that are consecutive, then halfway through, you want to make sure that you're zooming into the dad's face and he's changing his facial expression or maybe even his facial angle, just to make sure you don't lose that person while they're on the same screen for 5 seconds. So yeah, that's that. The
little micro hooks.
I'm not trying to say that is the only formula to succeed with shorts videos, but is the formula that I have used, and it's a formula that I think makes a difference for me. Yeah.
Crazy. There's a lot of takeaways for someone who wants to get into shorts creation from this. But I think there's a lot of lessons, and I guess maybe we touch on the momentum thing, then we'll go in a different direction. But building momentum, like, you have been extremely consistent, and I would say not just in Pokemon, but in all the things that you've thrived in, consistency has played a huge piece. And as you would have said, like, whether it's to do with studying, you may not be the most genetically gifted, smartest, naturally high IQ or whatever person in the room, but you definitely
the tunnel vision's real.
Tunnel vision. Yeah. The tunnel vision, the locking in.
It's going back to what we talked about at the very start. I think it's the life philosophy behind things. So it's like, it all comes to, like, it's December. We have one video that takes off, right? A lot of people will think, oh, great, I'm now going to make a couple more videos, try and make the most of this, right? But instead I will think, I'm going to literally put every last piece of my life into making as many possible high quality videos as I can, thinking about, what's happening around Christmas. I'm going to make Christmas videos. I'm going to really tap into the spirit. and I'm going to make, even though I'm on holidays, I'm going to make one video a day, at least, sometimes 2 videos a day, and just get up as many as I humanly can, because I know that putting all that effort in 1 month is going to be the equivalent of a whole year's worth of effort if I was to make videos outside of that period. And it
has been.
Yeah.
Like, that was the trend, right? Over this holiday period, you went up 100,000 subs.
170,000. Like, it was crazy. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like, I didn't make that many between February and November. That's
crazy. There's such a principle there in general about, in life, you have like windows of opportunity.
Yeah.
Where like the 80-20 principle of like 80% of your results come from 20% of the effort is like one little window in time. For example, when you're negotiating, like in sales, when you're negotiating a deal, that conversation around price and profit and closing, you may have put 100, 200 hours into putting together a proposal, creating your product and everything. Yet that little conversation around closing the deal, discussing the money, that's like 90, everything hinges on that.
100%. And so I think that is a big philosophy thing, where it's like, when people see the window of opportunity, it's not just, oh, that's nice. I'm going to try and do a little bit to get the most of that. It's actually, no, this is pivotal. This is everything.
Yeah, put the rest of my life on hold. We got to make the most of this. The door's only going to be open for a little while. This is my one chance. And if I miss this chance, it may never come again. And it's like get the absolute most out of that. And that comes with everything. Like, it happens so many times in my life where I've seen the opportunity. I could have easily not have thrown everything into it and maybe got only part of that opportunity, but instead it's catapulted, it's the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And I think, the stuff with YouTube is definitely like
the first 100 million that we got in 2022, and then this December as well, same thing happened. And then, GeoPals is being built up. So let's get the most that we can out of GeoPals, or for GeoPals, through this clout too. So it's like we're getting 100 million views a month, whatever it is. I now want to make a 4-part skit series that leads into GeoPals and builds emotion around GeoPals. And, the little brother's getting scammed by everyone, and he decides that he's going to take life into his own matters and create his own card game. And now all of a sudden GeoPals, the new card game, is now part of, like, embedded in the series. And it's like now 100 million people potentially have seen. Not 100.
So you got the attention wave, and now you're going to channel it into the thing you want it to.
Yeah. But it's like, in a perfect world, you would have months leading up to that point in time, right? You'd have strategies, you'd have documented PowerPoints, you'd have all these things that perfectly lead to how you're going to do that to absolutely maximize it. But the thing is, these opportunities, they come, and to maintain the opportunities, you need to be constantly working. And then at the same time, you need to be thinking strategy and doing that stuff without the months of prep. So it's like
how do you find... taking a bit of a different turn, because making the most of these windows of opportunity, and you got to be able to put everything on hold, and you got to be thinking long term and short term simultaneously.
Yeah,
you got to have the big picture strategy, and then actually executing.
Yeah,
for people who, similar to yourself, they've got other things going on in their life. They've got a job, maybe they've even got like a family, or they've got a mortgage that's pretty full on, or they're trying to like balance playing sport or having a social life. I guess the sacrifices that must be made, but how do you navigate that space of like these times of having to make these trade-offs that are a little bit uncomfortable?
Yeah, well,
and then potentially getting stuck in them, because I know for you, being your friend, there's times where you're really full on with YouTube, and we're hanging out, you're on your phone a lot, and you can't switch off.
Yeah.
Whereas other times you can be way more present.
Yeah, it is hard, man. It's really, really hard, and I think that's, if you take another step back, the window of opportunity of being in your 20s is another window of opportunity, because once you have kids, that's kind of a non-negotiable for me. If I had kids, I'm not gonna pursue these opportunities as hard as I'm pursuing them now, because I feel like I now have a responsibility, which is kids. That comes first. That is the opportunity that I need to maximize, the kids.
Yeah,
that happens, right? And I've had this discussion with my girlfriend Emily. I've kind of said, look, while I'm in my 20s, I want to do the most that I can. We've had a bit of a negotiation about that. I'm like, okay, we'll do 4 weeks of holidays a year where I'm completely switched off. That's what we've agreed on. So we're going to go to Europe this year for 4 weeks. But when I'm in that tunnel vision,
a big backlog of content.
Yeah, and maybe, yeah. And the thing about having someone as supportive as like Emily is that she gets it. She gets it all. A lot of people wouldn't get it. A lot of partners wouldn't get it, and they'd get frustrated by it. They wouldn't understand. Would potentially lead to a relationship breakup. Like it's like that. So that would be the sacrifice. But for me, I'm lucky because I've got someone that understands it.
It is that perfect storm, isn't it? It's the momentum. It's the window of opportunity. The ability to go after it without unraveling the rest of your life.
Yes.
And relationships.
A lot of people do unravel the rest of their lives pursuing it too hard. So that is something at small friend circle. So I've really dialed into like what is actually important, who is actually important. Only put effort into those people. Don't try to be friends with everyone. Don't try to have coffee dates with acquaintances all the time, because they're not leading to anything other than filling blank space. So
I've been thinking that coming to 2024, one of my only real goals was like, I need to just say no to a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
That was like one of my primary thing.
Yeah, 100%. And that's how you deal with it. And to be honest, it's sacrifice. So it is, if you're going to go down the content creator path, a lot of people are like, oh, that's the easiest job in the world. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, and to come full circle to the conversation we had at the start about vocation and that sort of thing, not everyone's meant to be a creator, creative, an entrepreneur. If you are happy doing what you do, you've won the lottery.
That's
because
the goal.
That's the thing. I don't like, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I kind of have to do it. When I tried working a job, all I would do is think about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
When I was when I was a school teacher, I'd go to work, listen to business podcasts and books, and I'd think of all these ideas of things I would prefer to do. And I was just miserable, and I couldn't shake off that tension I was living in. Yeah. So in a way, I feel like I'm depressed unless I'll live with regret if I don't try.
Yeah.
But I'm burdened by that, and I have to relieve that burden, much like you have to create YouTube videos.
Yeah, I think.
Whereas if you don't have that, it's probably easier and happier, and you can have more balance. You can have more friends. You can do more casual coffee dates. And
yeah, I think kind of being creative, it also stems from this realization that like life is finite, and you get a certain amount of years, right? And so within those years, like you want to experience as much as you possibly can. And you want to really tap into every part of potential that you have. Some people don't see life that way. They see life as, I'm just going to experience the life within the boundaries that, allow me to live this comfortable life. And that makes me happy. But for me, it's like, that doesn't make me happy. And so unless I explore and
live on the edges,
constantly kind of trying to understand the boundaries and find like new realms and eras and all these things, it gets pretty boring.
Yeah, so, I like that about you actually, because that's helped me a lot being around your end. Because I think with my upbringing and family, my mum is definitely let's keep everyone together, let's keep everyone safe, let's be at peace. And it's very much comfort zone energy. Yeah. And it can make you very fearful of things. But then, I remember when we were, this is maybe 2013, 2014, we went cliff jumping for the first time. You're doing flips, and you go to the tallest point of this cliff face and do like a double back twist flip to the water below, which apparently had sharks in it. Yeah. It was craziness. And I just remember the first time being with you guys, you're all jumping. I'm like, I got to jump. Everyone else is. Yeah. And it's nice to be like, push to the edge and actually take those risks. Yeah. Because there is a payoff. And as you're finding with like the YouTube channel, because you live somewhat of a reckless risk-taking life, you get the perks of that as well.
You do, yeah. And I think there's a point where if YouTube became full-time, I would wake up every morning just thinking, yes, like this is
Christmas
life.
Day energy.
How good is life every day, It would be very different. And I think you've seen me when I'm in my low points, when I'm, defeated in the creative space, and I'm literally just working, 13, 14-hour days at work and don't have time for anything else. And that is like the most lowest point I can ever get to. It's like, for as long as that exists, it's always going to be suboptimal. Yeah. So I would love to have a reality where you just wake up every morning thinking, yes, life is about to happen, and I'm pumped for it, excited for it.
I think you want to strive towards that as much as you can, but the reality is you're never fully going to arrive. So I think there is just like, you got to be grateful for where you're at in the journey, and just feeling like, or at least I'm in the right direction. I'm building this long-term vision, because even doing what I do, I sometimes remind myself, even when it's like, if there's a lull in business and you haven't got a lot of income coming in, or maybe something didn't work out, or even you have like relational issues that go on or whatever. Yeah. Or you get sick for 3 months. It's nice to have that longer term perspective and be like, hey, I'm still grateful for what I've got. Like, I'm still heading in the right direction.
Yeah, it's agreed. I think the caveat would be like, if you're getting pushed to the point of exhaustion all the time, that is when I don't want today to happen kind of starts kicking, not in a real intense sense, but when you wake up feeling like, oh, this is just going to be another exhausting day, and I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's what I want gone. I want to wake up feeling like, yeah, today's going to be a challenge, but I can actually now enjoy. I have time to enjoy all the things that life has to offer. So it's not about not being grateful for things that I've got, but it's being grateful for having the things that I've got and having the time to appreciate them properly. It's like right now I can't appreciate a lot of things properly because it's too much going on. Trying to create this world. Yeah,
it's a tension to live in. Hey, yeah, life is about balance. Hey, and that's why I think it's really cool to have these. We'll probably wrap up soon, but having these behind the scenes conversations, because from an outside point of view, people can see the YouTube channel, or they can see you in the professional sense. Yeah. Or they see like maybe the social media accolades or anything like that. But the reality is like these sacrifices, these trade-offs, these tensions, these struggles.
Yeah.
And there's so much work that goes in
behind
the scenes.
There's a lot.
And sometimes I think too, as you said, I don't think it's worth envying what other people have too, because you don't know what goes into it.
Yeah, correct.
Because even people listening to this, you've just given away your formula. You can go be Poker Retro.
Yeah.
You can swipe his whole thing.
Yeah.
You can create content around nostalgia. You can write scripts. You can record them the exact same way Aidan does.
Yeah.
Are you going to do it? No way.
Yeah. Well,
Depending
on how much people want it.
How much they want to do it. But chances are, like, you know, you're not concerned about someone stealing your idea or your thing.
Execution's everything.
Execution's everything.
Yeah. And there's a good chance that you do it and it won't take off for a good, 12 months.
Yeah.
And then when it does, it's like, oh, now I can make the most of this opportunity. But will you make it through the 12 months? That's the hardest part. It's like, took my channel, 12 years to find out what actually worked. So it's...
Yeah, crazy. All right, so 2 questions before we wrap up. One is, so what's next for you in terms of what's coming up on the horizon, whether it's GeoPals, the channel, where are you thinking in that space? And then the second thing is, how can people follow and find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the first one is we're going to continue to make content every single day on YouTube. That's the goal for this year until the point where the opportunity runs dry. The opportunity being the YouTube algorithm's pumping. And in doing that, we're hoping to get to 1 million subscribers by the end of the year and maintain the current level of viewership that we've got now. And then that'll set us up really nicely to launch the GeoPals game probably in around October, November this year, which will be the fully fledged completed card game / board game, depending on where we go with the actual format. But we are playtesting and we're getting it all made. We're making booster packs pretty soon. So it's all coming together. We're going to have an online version of the game that people can like beta test, which will be really cool.
I just find it so funny. Anyone who's listening to this right now, yes, he does make YouTube videos every day. We know that that's 4 hours per video. Yes, he works full time. Yes, he's making a board game and developing artwork.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. So, but we're going to try and maintain the YouTube channel so it can help to launch the GeoPals game when it's ready by the end of the year. I'm going to continue working full time. I'm doing a lot of international travel this year with work. So we'll be in Houston, Singapore, going to Europe for 4 weeks. So there's a lot of things I need to plan for to make sure that I'm not falling off during those weeks.
It's going to be roller coaster, strap in.
I have to probably take a couple of days of leave and just spend the whole day making like 10 videos and lining them all up. Maybe need to get a laptop and get the editing software on the laptop. Could be a good shout. So that is the number one kind of goal, I would say. Then 2025 is really a test to see if we've maintained, over the last 12 months, if we've got consistency with it all. Is it enough to become a long-term kind of, give this a good hard crack, do it full time? That'll be the test, but it may not. It's fickle. Everything's fickle. Some people can get 1 million subscribers and then be dead channel in the next, couple of months.
Yeah.
It's got
to be more than just YouTube.
It's got to be more than just YouTube. You need to have a real solid community behind and process behind what you're doing. So I haven't got that.
And a product, which is in development.
In development, yeah. So I haven't got that yet. So 2024 is a year to do all that while trying to find some form of balance in life in the meantime. So
some form of balance of life. Occasionally hang out with your girlfriend, surf and see some friends.
Yeah, that's it.
Go to Christmas with the family.
That's it. So that's the goal for 2024. 2025 will be the year where we decide whether it's going to happen or not.
Assess, yeah.
Yep. And in terms of where people can find out where to follow us, I'd say start with YouTube. So if you follow Poker Retro, that'll take you to my main YouTube channel with all my skip videos and those types of things. But then that'll also have a video on there that explains everything about GeoPals. And so GeoPals is a trading card game that we're developing. So if you're an adult or you're younger and want to get into a new card game, it's definitely worth checking out. It's both, you can play it indoors and outdoors. So we hide these cards physically all around the world. People go and try and find them. And it's like geocaching. So you can literally go and walk into a forest and find one of these cards and take it home, and it's then like a collectible. And
treasure hunt.
And there's competitions. So there's teams on our Discord page. So you can join our Discord if you really want to get into it. And there's treasure hunting teams. So there's like the Discord's divided into 3 teams, and the team that finds the most GeoPals at the end of each series wins a trophy card, which is like a card that you can only win by winning these series. So yeah, start with the YouTube, watch the GeoPals video, join the Discord if you think you're going to be interested. We're also on Instagram as both Pokey Retro and GeoPals as well.
Still on TikTok?
Still on TikTok. We're on everything. So if you just go every social media platform you use, just
GeoPals
and Pokey Retro. But awesome. I'd say, yeah, the Discord is where all the action's happening. So if you join the Discord, that'll be the best place to kind of stay in touch.
Brilliant. Oh, thanks for your time, Aidan. You're a busy man. And
thanks, Kurt.
We'll have another chat soon.
Sounds
Cheers.
good. See ya.